The Alpha King's beast had one unbreakable rule. If anyone touched the blood on its fur, they died. Not wounded, not spared, dead. That morning another fearless warrior ignored the warning. He reached out with shaking hands, hoping to save the creature that had won the war. The battlefield watched him disappear beneath massive black claws. No one moved after that. Not the royal healers, not the generals, not even the Alpha King's own guards. Then the most unexpected person stepped forward. She was not a warrior. She was not a Luna. She owned no wolf, and carried no royal blood that anyone knew of. She was only an orphan healer holding a bucket of warm water with hands that had spent years saving strangers, while the world forgot her name. Every soldier screamed for her to stop. She never did. She knelt beside the beast. She looked into its terrifying golden eyes. Then she did the one thing no living soul had ever survived. She placed her hand on its blood-covered fur. The entire battlefield stopped breathing. Instead of tearing her apart, the beast slowly closed its eyes. Its enormous body trembled. Then before thousands of stunned warriors, the monster lowered its head and leaned into her touch like it had been waiting for her all its life. At that exact moment, far away inside the royal palace, the Alpha King suddenly collapsed to one knee as an ancient bond exploded through his soul. He had never seen the mysterious healer. He did not know her name. Yet his wolf recognized her instantly. Mate. Before the king could discover who she really was, whispers spread across every kingdom. The untouchable beast had bowed to a common girl. Powerful alphas began hunting her. Ancient prophecies awakened. Hidden enemies came out of the shadows. And the one secret buried for 20 years was finally about to destroy every throne in the wolf kingdoms. But the cruelest betrayal had not happened yet, because the very Alpha whose soul had recognized her would soon stand before the entire kingdom and reject her as his mate. That single decision would cost him his queen, his children, his kingdom, and force him to wage the most painful war of his life against the only woman he could never stop loving. The battlefield still breathed even though the war had ended. Smoke rolled across the broken earth like restless ghosts. Torn banners fluttered in the cold wind. Spears lay buried beside fallen warriors. The scent of blood mixed with wet soil until every breath felt heavy. Ravens circled overhead, but none dared land near the center of the field. There's something far more terrifying waited. The Alpha King's legendary beast stood among the bodies like a living nightmare. Its enormous black fur was soaked with crimson. Fresh wounds covered its powerful frame, yet its glowing golden eyes still burned with enough fury to silence every heartbeat around it. Every soldier knew the same story. The beast had never allowed a single hand to touch its blood. Anyone who tried had died before they could even scream. The silence broke when a young captain stepped forward with trembling courage. His armor was cracked and stained from battle, but he refused to show fear before the gathered warriors. He carried fresh bandages and spoke softly as if words alone could calm death itself. He took one careful step, then another. The beast did not move. Hope flickered across the faces, watching from a distance. Perhaps the stories had been exaggerated after all. Then the captain reached out. Everything happened in a single heartbeat. The beast exploded forward with terrifying speed. A deep roar shook the valley. The captain was thrown across the ground before anyone realized what had happened. His bandages scattered through the air like white feathers. He lay unconscious beneath a broken cart, while every soldier stumbled backward in horror. No one rushed to help him. Fear rooted them where they stood. No healer volunteered. No commander gave another order. No one dared look into those glowing eyes. Far from the frightened crowd, a young woman quietly filled a wooden bucket from a nearby stream. She wore no shining armor. No royal crest rested upon her shoulders. Her simple gray healer's dress was patched in several places and stained with herbs gathered from the forest. Loose strands of chestnut hair framed a calm face that carried kindness even after witnessing unimaginable horror. Her name was Lyra Ashwood. Most people barely noticed her existence. She had spent years healing wounded soldiers while receiving little more than cold thanks and empty promises. She had no family, no title, no powerful wolf, only gentle hands and a heart that refused to abandon those who suffered. She lifted the bucket and began walking toward the beast. Gasps spread through the battlefield. One elderly healer grabbed her wrist. "Child, do not do this if you value your life." Lyra looked at the terrified woman with gentle eyes. If it wished to kill me, it already would have. The old healer released her as though touching Lyra had become dangerous itself. Every step toward the beast felt heavier than the last. Broken weapons crunched beneath her boots. The wind carried the smell of rain. The beast watched her without blinking. Blood dripped slowly from its thick black fur onto the earth below. Its breathing came deep and uneven. Pain hid beneath its terrifying appearance. Lyra stopped only an arm's length away. She did not reach for the wounds. She simply knelt. The battlefield became so quiet that distant thunder echoed across the mountains. Lyra slowly placed the bucket beside her and soaked a clean cloth in warm water. Her movements carried no fear, no sudden motion, only patience. She looked into the beast's fierce golden eyes. "You have fought enough," she whispered. No one had ever spoken to the legendary beast like that. The creature lowered its massive head just enough for her to reach the blood matted across its neck. 1,000 warriors forgot to breathe. Lyra gently pressed the damp cloth against its fur. Dark blood slowly disappeared beneath careful strokes. She cleaned each wound with the tenderness of someone caring for an injured child rather than the most feared creature in the kingdom. The beast never growled. It never snapped. Instead, its eyes slowly closed. A deep, exhausted breath escaped its chest. Several soldiers stared with tears forming in their eyes because they knew they were witnessing something impossible. Among them stood Prince Ronan Blackthorn. His handsome face remained perfectly calm, but inside his thoughts raced like wildfire. Impossible. Even the Alpha cannot calm the beast this way. "Who are you, Lyra Ashwood?" Far away inside the royal palace, Alpha King Cale Draven suddenly stopped in the middle of a war council. Powerful generals fell silent as the king gripped the edge of the stone table. An invisible force crashed through his chest. His wolf surged violently inside him. His heartbeat became uneven. His closest commander stepped forward. "My king, are you injured?" Cale slowly shook his head, but confusion clouded his usually fearless expression. Someone touched him. The commander frowned. Touched who? Cale closed his eyes. The beast. His wolf had always shared a mysterious bond with the legendary guardian that fought beside him since childhood. Every wound the beast suffered echoed faintly through Cale's soul. Yet now another feeling flowed across that bond. Warmth, gentleness, comfort, and something even stranger. Recognition. His wolf whispered a single word inside his mind. Mate. Cale opened his eyes sharply. Impossible. He had never scented his mate. He had never seen her face. Yet somewhere beyond the battlefield his wolf insisted destiny had already begun. Back on the battlefield, Lyra continued cleaning the final wound hidden beneath the beast's shoulder. As the dried blood disappeared, strange silver markings appeared beneath its dark fur. Ancient symbols pulsed for only a moment before fading again. Lyra frowned. She had never seen anything like them. The beast suddenly opened its eyes and stared directly into hers. Not with anger, not with hunger, with recognition. It slowly lowered its enormous body until it rested completely on the ground before her. Every soldier watching instinctively lowered their weapons. No beast had ever bowed, not even before kings. A cold breeze swept across the valley, carrying whispers through the grass. Elder Mira stepped forward from the crowd. The old healer's weathered face had turned pale. Her trembling eyes remained fixed on Lyra's right wrist. A faint silver light glowed beneath her skin. Very slowly the light spread into the shape of an ancient crescent moon surrounded by delicate vines. Elder Mira nearly collapsed. The prophecy. She whispered the words so quietly that only the wind seemed to hear them. But Prince Ronan heard enough. His gaze locked onto the glowing mark. A slow, calculating smile appeared across his lips. The lost bloodline still lives. As Lyra looked down in confusion at the mysterious symbol burning upon her wrist, the beast suddenly rose to its feet and released a thunderous howl toward the darkening sky. Across every kingdom wolves answered. And hidden deep within forgotten mountains, something ancient opened its eyes for the very first time in more than 20 years. Morning arrived beneath a sky washed in pale silver, but peace never reached the Shadow Kingdom. News of the impossible spread faster than wildfire through every village and fortress. Soldiers spoke in hushed voices. Healers exchanged frightened glances. Stable boys repeated the story until it sounded like an old legend reborn. A simple orphan healer had touched the Alpha King's beast. She had washed away its blood. She had stood before death without shaking. More frightening than all of it was the truth that every witness swore upon their lives. The beast had lowered its head to her as though it had known her forever. Lyra wished none of those whispers existed. She walked through the healer camp carrying baskets of fresh herbs while curious eyes followed every step she took. Warriors who had ignored her for years suddenly stepped aside to let her pass. Others bowed their heads in uncertain respect. Some looked at her with fear instead of admiration. She hated both. Her glowing wrist had faded before sunrise, yet the memory refused to leave her mind. Every time she closed her eyes, she remembered the strange, silver mark and the beast looking into her soul instead of her face. She quietly entered a medical tent where wounded soldiers rested. A young wolf warrior struggled to breathe after taking a spear through his shoulder during the battle. Lyra smiled gently before kneeling beside him. "You survived because your heart refused to surrender," she said softly. The young warrior laughed through the pain. "No healer has ever spoken to me like that." She carefully changed his bandages and gave him a fresh herbal mixture. "Then keep surviving, because I would rather treat living warriors than brave graves." The young soldier smiled for the first time since the war ended. Outside the tent, heavy footsteps approached. Royal guards. The camp instantly fell silent. 6 warriors dressed in black armor stopped before Lyra. Their silver cloaks carried the crest of the Shadow Crown. The captain stepped forward and bowed only slightly. "Lyra Ashwood." She looked up calmly. "Yes. By order of Alpha King Cale Draven, you are commanded to appear before the royal court immediately." Every conversation around them died. Someone dropped a basket of herbs. An elderly healer whispered a quiet prayer beneath her breath. Lyra felt dozens of eyes watching her. She had done nothing wrong. Yet something inside her warned that this journey would change everything. The road to the capital stretched across mountains and forests still scarred by war. Burned villages stood beside green valleys slowly returning to life. Children waved at the royal convoy, while mothers pulled them safely behind wooden fences. Hope had returned to the kingdom after victory, but fear still walked beside it. Lyra rode quietly in the last carriage. She noticed something strange. The black beast followed from a distance. It never came close enough to frighten the horses. It simply watched. Whenever the convoy stopped, the beast stopped. Whenever they moved, it moved. None of the guards dared question it. By sunset, the towering walls of shadow keep appeared against the crimson sky. Massive stone towers rose above the cliffs like silent giants. Iron gates opened slowly as the royal convoy entered the capital. Lyra had never seen such grandeur. Crystal lanterns lit every street. Silver fountains reflected the evening light. Noble families walked proudly through marble squares while servants hurried between towering mansions. She suddenly felt smaller than ever. A common orphan did not belong in a place built for kings. Inside the palace, everything echoed with power. Long halls displayed portraits of ancient alpha rulers. Giant wolf statues guarded every doorway. The scent of cedar wood mixed with burning candles filled the air. Royal servants avoided looking directly at her. Some whispered after she passed. Others frowned. One noblewoman covered her mouth. "That is the healer, the one who touched the beast." Another replied quietly, "She cannot be ordinary. Nothing ordinary survives that creature." Lyra pretended not to hear. She followed the guards until enormous doors slowly opened before her. The royal court waited beyond. Hundreds of nobles filled the grand chamber. Generals stood beside towering pillars. Royal advisors lined both sides of the hall. Every pair of eyes turned toward her. At the far end, upon a throne carved from black stone, sat Alpha King Cale Draven. His dark hair rested neatly against his shoulders. His silver eyes remained calm, yet carried the weight of countless battles. Power surrounded him without effort. He did not need to raise his voice. His silence alone commanded obedience. The moment Lyra looked at him, something deep inside her chest stirred. A strange warmth. A quiet pull. It frightened her. Cale felt it too. His wolf slammed against the walls of his soul with overwhelming force. "Mate." The word echoed through his mind louder than thunder. For one brief second his cold expression cracked. His eyes widened almost invisibly. Impossible. This gentle healer. This ordinary woman. She was the one destiny had chosen. Before he could speak, Prince Ronan stepped gracefully into the center of the court. "Your Majesty." Permission to address the court. Cale gave a silent nod. Ronan turned toward the gathered nobles. Yesterday, every witness saw something that has never happened in recorded history. A common healer touched the sacred beast, the same beast that has killed every hand reaching toward it. The hall filled with uneasy whispers. Ronan continued calmly. Perhaps this is a miracle, or perhaps it is dark magic. The whispers became louder. Several nobles nodded. One elderly lord stepped forward. No ordinary woman could control such a creature. She must be questioned. Another added, or imprisoned until the truth is known. Lyra looked around the hall in disbelief. I never controlled anyone. I only cleaned his wounds. My duty as a healer is to ease suffering wherever I find it. A noblewoman laughed coldly. Convenient words. Another voice shouted, Witches often hide behind kindness. The accusations came one after another. Lyra stood alone, while hundreds judged her without knowing her heart. Cale remained silent. His wolf demanded that he protect her. His instincts screamed to stand beside her. Yet another truth haunted him. If the court discovered she was his fated mate before understanding who she truly was, every noble house would tear the kingdom apart. Civil war still lingered beneath the surface after the recent battle. Powerful families waited for the smallest weakness to challenge the throne. Ronan watched Cale carefully. He saw the hesitation. He smiled inside. Then Elder Mira entered the chamber. She walked slowly, but her eyes never left Lyra. Before anyone could question her, she suddenly bowed deeply before the Alpha King. Your Majesty, there are prophecies older than this kingdom. Some truths cannot yet be spoken. Please allow the girl to leave. Ronan narrowed his eyes. Interesting. Even the oldest healer protects her. Cale rose from his throne. The entire hall became silent. He stepped down until only a few feet separated him from Lyra. Their eyes met. The invisible bond between them grew stronger. His wolf begged him, claim her, protect her, never let her go. Instead, Cale forced his heart into silence. His voice became cold enough to freeze the room. Lyra Ashwood, the court suspects you of bringing unknown danger into this kingdom. Until your innocence can be proven, I reject every claim connecting you to the Shadow Crown. You are not my responsibility. You are not welcome within my royal household. Leave this palace. The words struck harder than any blade. Something invisible shattered inside Lyra. She did not understand why his rejection hurt so deeply. Tears filled her eyes but never fell. She lowered her head. As you command, my king. Without another word, she turned and walked through the endless hall while hundreds of nobles watched in silence. None of them noticed Cale clenching his fists until blood ran across his palms. His wolf howled in agony inside him. But Ronan noticed, and for the first time he became certain of something terrifying. The Alpha King had not rejected that healer because she was worthless. He had rejected her because she was far more dangerous than anyone yet understood. Outside the palace, heavy rain began to fall. Lyra stepped into the storm alone. She never saw the cloaked figures watching from the shadows beyond the city gates. They had not come to arrest her. They had come to take the lost princess home. Rain poured from the heavens as though the sky itself mourned the woman walking alone through the empty road beyond Shadow Keep. Every step Lyra took carried the weight of a broken heart. The cold soaked through her simple healer's dress, but she barely noticed. The Alpha King's words echoed again and again inside her mind. She had faced death without fear on the battlefield. She had stood before the legendary beast without trembling. Yet nothing had prepared her for the quiet cruelty of rejection. She did not even understand why his voice had hurt so deeply. It felt as though a part of her soul had been torn away without leaving a wound anyone else could see. The road stretched into a dark forest where ancient trees blocked the fading light. Thunder rolled above the mountains. The wind whispered through the branches with an eerie voice that sounded almost alive. Lyra tightened the worn cloak around her shoulders and continued walking. She had nowhere to go. The healer camp was behind her. The palace had cast her away. For the first time since she was a little girl, she truly belonged nowhere. Behind the shadows, hidden among the trees, silent figures watched her every step. They wore long silver cloaks without any royal crest. Their faces remained hidden beneath deep hoods. They moved through the forest without making a single sound. They had followed her since she left the palace gates, yet none of them showed themselves. Far away inside Shadow Keep, Alpha King Kale stood alone on the highest balcony overlooking the kingdom. Rain struck the stone walls around him, but he never moved. His silver eyes remained fixed on the distant forest, where Lyra had disappeared. His wolf paced endlessly inside his mind with restless anger. You abandoned her. Kale closed his eyes. I protected the kingdom. You protected your throne. His wolf growled with painful disappointment. She stood alone while you broke her heart. Kale gripped the cold stone railing until cracks spread beneath his fingers. He had faced monsters. He had survived wars. He had buried friends. None of those battles had felt as impossible as the one raging inside his own soul. Behind him, Elder Mira entered quietly. You made the hardest choice a king can make. Kale never turned around. Tell me it was the right one. The old healer remained silent for a long moment. Sometimes the right choice still becomes the greatest mistake of your life. Her words stayed with him long after she left. Meanwhile, Prince Ronan stood inside his private chamber, staring at an old map spread across a wooden table. Ancient symbols marked forgotten mountains beyond the borders of every known kingdom. Beside the map rested a faded painting of a little girl wearing a silver necklace shaped like a crescent moon. Ronan smiled slowly. After all these years, you finally stepped into the light. He turned toward one of his trusted assassins waiting silently in the room. Do not kill her. Follow her. Anyone protecting that girl must be eliminated, but she belongs to me. The assassin bowed before disappearing into the darkness. Night settled over the forest. Lyra finally stopped beside a quiet stream where moonlight shimmered across the flowing water. Exhaustion filled every part of her body. She knelt beside the stream and splashed cool water across her face. As she looked into the clear reflection her breath caught, the faint silver mark had returned. It glowed softly upon her wrist. This time it spread delicate lines of light toward her hand before slowly fading again. She touched the mark with trembling fingers. What are you? Before she could think, another voice answered from behind her. You already know the answer. Lyra spun around. 3 cloaked strangers stood only a few steps away. She had not heard them approach. Her heartbeat quickened. Who are you? The tallest among them lowered his hood. His hair was silver touched with age, but his sharp blue eyes carried quiet strength. We have searched for you for 20 years. Lyra slowly stepped backward. You have mistaken me for someone else. The old warrior smiled gently. No. We finally found the daughter of Queen Selene. The world seemed to stop. Lyra stared at him, unable to breathe. My mother died when I was a baby, so everyone believed. The old warrior reached into his cloak and removed a small silver pendant shaped like a crescent moon. Lyra gasped. An identical pendant rested beneath her own clothing. She had worn it since childhood. She had never known where it came from. The stranger lifted his pendant beside hers. They fit together perfectly. Your mother wore the other half until the night she gave you away to save your life. Before Lyra could answer, arrows suddenly sliced through the darkness. One struck a tree beside her. Another narrowly missed her shoulder. The silver-cloaked warriors instantly drew glowing swords. Assassins, run! The peaceful forest exploded into chaos. Black-cloaked killers rushed between the trees. Steel clashed beneath the moonlight. The old warrior stepped before Lyra, protecting her from every attack. She had never witnessed fighters move so quickly. Every swing carried impossible precision. Every step flowed like water. Yet more assassins continued appearing from the darkness. Someone wanted her captured alive. One masked attacker broke through the defenders and lunged directly toward Lyra. Fear froze her body. Before the blade reached her, a massive black shape crashed into the assassin. The legendary beast. Its roar shook the entire forest. The assassin disappeared beneath enormous claws. The remaining attackers retreated in panic. Even they feared the creature. The beast ignored every fleeing enemy. Instead, it walked calmly toward Lyra. Its golden eyes softened once again. It gently touched its forehead against hers. The silver warriors exchanged stunned glances. The guardian has accepted her. The oldest among them slowly knelt. Then every warrior followed. None of them bowed to the beast. They bowed to Lyra. Confusion filled her face. Please stop. I do not understand any of this. The old warrior rose with respectful eyes. Then allow us to show you the truth. They traveled through hidden mountain paths until sunrise painted the eastern sky with golden light. After several hours they reached what appeared to be nothing more than a towering cliff covered with vines. The old warrior pressed his hand against an ancient stone covered in faded moon symbols. The mountain trembled. Slowly a hidden gateway opened. Beyond it stretched a breathtaking valley untouched by time. Silver rivers sparkled beneath the morning sun. Crystal waterfalls poured from towering cliffs. Ancient castles rose among endless forests, glowing with white blossoms. Thousands of wolves roamed peacefully beside children who laughed without fear. Lyra stood speechless. "Welcome home." The old warrior smiled warmly. "This is the Moon Kingdom, the last hidden kingdom, the true home of your bloodline." Before Lyra could recover from the shock, an elderly woman stepped forward from the palace entrance. Her silver hair flowed down her back. Kind eyes filled with tears met Lyra's face. It was Elder Mara. No, not the healer from Shadowkeep. She now wore royal white robes, marked with the ancient crest of the Moon Kingdom. Lyra whispered in disbelief. "You knew." Elder Mara slowly embraced her. "I have waited 20 years to say these words. Welcome home, Princess Lyra." But before Lyra could even begin to understand her destiny, another secret quietly awakened inside her. A sudden wave of dizziness passed through her body. She placed a trembling hand against her stomach. Elder Mara looked into her eyes. Then her peaceful smile slowly disappeared. The ancient healer had recognized the signs immediately. Lyra was carrying the future of 2 kingdoms. The morning sun climbed slowly above the hidden mountains and poured golden light across the Moon Kingdom. Silver rivers shimmered like flowing glass, while white wolves ran freely through endless green fields. Everything felt peaceful, yet Lyra's heart was anything but calm. She stood on the balcony of the ancient palace, looking across the kingdom that everyone insisted was her true home. Only a few days earlier she had been an unnoticed healer sleeping in a small tent beside wounded soldiers. Now strangers bowed whenever she passed. Servants called her princess. Warriors waited for her commands. It all felt like a beautiful dream that belonged to someone else. Elder Mara stepped onto the balcony, carrying 2 cups of warm herbal tea. She handed one to Lyra before standing beside her in silence. Neither woman spoke for several moments. The quiet itself seemed to heal wounds words could never reach. Finally, Lyra broke the silence. "I still feel like the same girl who left the battlefield." Elder Mara smiled gently. "That is exactly why you are worthy of becoming queen. Power changes those who chase it. It reveals those who never wanted it." Lyra lowered her eyes. "If I truly belong here, then why was I abandoned? Why did my family never come back for me?" Pain crossed the old healer's face. "Your mother never abandoned you. She gave up everything to keep you alive. On the night the Moon Kingdom fell, Queen Selene escaped through hidden tunnels, carrying you in her arms. Ronan's father had already surrounded the palace. The queen knew she could not outrun them while protecting an infant. She placed you in the arms of a trusted healer and remained behind to face the invaders. She never walked out alive." Lyra felt tears gathering in her eyes. For years she had imagined countless stories about her parents. None had ended with such heartbreaking sacrifice. Elder Mara gently squeezed her hand. "Your mother died believing one day you would return. Do not let her sacrifice become meaningless." Those words settled deep inside Lyra's heart. That same afternoon, the elders gathered inside the Hall of Moonlight. Ancient stone pillars stretched toward a crystal ceiling where sunlight reflected across hundreds of glowing symbols. Every elder watched Lyra with calm expectation. At the center of the hall rested a long silver staff carved with wolves and crescent moons. The oldest elder stepped forward. "Princess Lyra, royal blood alone cannot rule this kingdom. Only the moon itself chooses its queen. If you wish to protect your people, you must awaken the power sleeping inside your blood." Lyra nodded without hesitation. "Tell me what I must do." The training began before sunrise the next morning. There were no gentle lessons, no easy victories. The Moon Warriors pushed her beyond every limit she believed she possessed. She climbed frozen cliffs until her hands bled. She crossed icy rivers while carrying heavy stones. She learned to fight with twin blades, though she had never held a weapon before. She fell countless times. She rose every single time. Whenever exhaustion threatened to break her, she remembered the battlefield. She remembered the Alpha King's cold rejection. She remembered her mother's sacrifice. Every painful memory became another reason to stand again. Weeks slowly became months. The frightened healer disappeared little by little. Confidence replaced hesitation. Strength replaced fear. Grace replaced uncertainty. Her movements became smooth like flowing water. Even experienced warriors struggled to keep pace with her. One evening, she stood inside the sacred moon temple beneath a sky filled with countless stars. Elder Mira waited beside an ancient stone pool glowing with silver light. "Tonight you face your greatest test." Lyra stepped closer. "What happens if I fail?" The old healer answered honestly. "The moon spirit rejects those who doubt themselves. Some never awaken. Others never return." Lyra took a slow breath before walking into the glowing water. The silver light surrounded her body. The temple disappeared. She suddenly found herself standing inside endless darkness where only moonlight existed. A familiar voice echoed through the silence. "Do you still believe you are only an orphan?" Lyra turned. Before her stood a beautiful woman wearing flowing white robes crowned with silver flowers. Although they had never met, Lyra recognized her instantly. "Mother." Queen Selene smiled with tears shining in her eyes. "You have grown stronger than I ever dreamed." Lyra ran forward, but her hands passed through empty light. "The queen was only a memory left behind by ancient magic. I wanted to protect you. Instead, I left you alone." Lyra shook her head while tears rolled down her face. "You saved me. Because of you I can still fight." Queen Selene reached toward her daughter. "Then fight not for revenge. Fight so no child ever loses their family again." The vision slowly faded. The silver light exploded across the temple. Outside, every elder felt the mountain tremble. The sky filled with glowing moonlight despite the bright afternoon sun. A powerful wave of ancient energy swept across the kingdom. Inside the sacred pool, Lyra slowly opened her eyes. Her chestnut hair now carried faint silver highlights beneath the light. Her eyes glowed with soft moonlit radiance. Elegant silver markings shimmered along her wrists before disappearing beneath her skin. The moon had accepted its queen. Every elder dropped to one knee. "Long live Queen Lyra." Far beyond the hidden mountains, Alpha King Kale stood inside the royal training grounds, defeating every challenger who faced him. Sword after sword fell before his unmatched strength. Yet victory brought him no peace. Every night, he dreamed of Lyra walking away through the rain. Every morning he woke with the same unbearable emptiness. His wolf had become unusually quiet, not because it had accepted losing its mate, because it was grieving. General Marcus approached carefully. "Your Majesty, our scouts searched every village. She has vanished." Kale looked toward the distant horizon. "She is alive. I feel it." Marcus hesitated before speaking again. "Then why does it seem as though you have already lost her forever?" Kale had no answer. At that very moment, Prince Ronan received disturbing news inside his private chamber. One of his spies knelt before him with visible fear. "My prince, the girl escaped into the northern mountains. We lost every trail. None of our men returned." Ronan slowly stood. His calm smile disappeared. He walked toward the fireplace where ancient maps burned in the flames. Only one place beyond those mountains could hide someone forever. The Moon Kingdom. He whispered the forgotten name with quiet hatred. Impossible. It was destroyed. Unless... He suddenly remembered the silver mark upon Lyra's wrist. The beast kneeling before her. Elder Mira, defending her inside the royal court. The pieces finally came together. He laughed softly. So the lost princess truly survived. His eyes grew cold. "Prepare every spy we have. Search every hidden pass. Find her before she becomes strong enough to reclaim what belongs to me." Back inside the Moon Kingdom, several peaceful months passed. Lyra spent every day training and every evening learning the forgotten history of her people. Then one quiet morning, while walking through the palace gardens, she suddenly stopped. A strange wave of dizziness swept over her. She steadied herself against a flowering tree. Elder Mira hurried toward her. The old healer gently placed a hand upon Lyra's wrist. A warm smile slowly appeared. "There is no longer any doubt." Lyra searched her face with nervous eyes. "Tell me." Elder Mira looked at her with deep affection. "You are carrying not one child. You are carrying twins." At that exact moment, far away in the Shadow Kingdom, the Alpha King's legendary beast lifted its head toward the northern mountains and released a powerful howl that echoed across the valleys. Kale froze where he stood. His wolf whispered only 3 words. Our children live. The howl of the legendary beast echoed across the mountains long after the sound itself had faded. Every wolf within the Shadow Kingdom lifted its head toward the northern horizon. Some became restless, others whimpered without understanding why. Deep inside the royal palace, Alpha King Kale Draven stood frozen in the middle of the training grounds. His sword slipped from his hand and struck the stone floor with a heavy sound. His heartbeat refused to settle. His wolf had spoken only 3 words, yet they shattered every wall he had built around his heart. Our children live. Kale closed his eyes as disbelief battled hope inside him. His mind searched for reason, but none existed. He had never claimed Lyra as his mate. They had shared no life together. They had never even confessed what fate had chosen for them. Yet the bond between their wolves had awakened the moment she touched the beast. That bond had never disappeared. It had only grown stronger with every passing day. General Marcus hurried toward him after hearing the beast's howl. "My king, what happened?" Kale looked toward the distant mountains. "She's alive." Marcus slowly nodded. "You have always believed that." Kale shook his head. "Not only alive, she is carrying my future." Marcus stared at him in stunned silence. He had fought beside Kale for more than 15 years. He had seen him defeat impossible enemies without fear. Yet this was the first time he had ever seen uncertainty in the eyes of the Alpha King. "If that is true, then why did you let her leave?" Kale lowered his head. "Because I believed losing one woman was better than losing an entire kingdom. Now I fear I may lose both." Those words spread through Marcus like cold wind. For the first time he understood that his king had never rejected Lyra because he doubted her. He had rejected her because he believed it was the only way to protect her from the dangerous politics surrounding the throne. But fate rarely forgave decisions made through fear. Later that evening, Kale entered the ancient library beneath the palace. Dust covered shelves that had not been touched for generations. Old scrolls rested inside carved stone, cases protected by forgotten magic. Elder Mira had once spent countless nights studying there before quietly leaving the kingdom. The royal librarian greeted Kale with surprise. "Your Majesty, you have never visited this place." Kale spoke without hesitation. "Bring me every record about the Moon Kingdom." The old librarian hesitated. "Those books were sealed by royal decree many years ago." Kale looked directly into his eyes. "Open them." An hour later, dozens of ancient books covered the long wooden table. Kale read until candlelight became moonlight. He discovered stories that no one had dared repeat. The Moon Kingdom had not fallen because of foreign invasion alone. It had been betrayed from within. Someone had opened the palace gates during the final night. Someone had guided the enemy directly to the royal family. Kale continued reading. One name appeared again and again. Blackthorn. His breathing slowed. Prince Ronan carried the same family name. A heavy silence filled the library. Kale suddenly remembered every moment Ronan had spoken against Lyra inside the royal court. Every accusation had come too quickly. Every suspicion had been carefully prepared. It had never been fear. It had been recognition. Meanwhile, inside the hidden Moon Kingdom, life moved with gentle peace. Lyra walked slowly through a garden filled with white roses while one hand rested upon her growing belly. The twins had changed everything. Every morning she felt stronger. Every evening she imagined the future waiting for them. She no longer dreamed about revenge. She dreamed about giving her children the peaceful childhood she had never known. Children from nearby villages often gathered around her whenever she visited the gardens. They laughed together. They chased butterflies across green fields. They listened as Lyra told stories about courage and kindness. Watching her from a distance, Elder Mira smiled softly. A young warrior standing beside her spoke with quiet admiration. "She already leads without trying." Elder Mira nodded. "That is the difference between rulers who seek power and rulers chosen by destiny." Inside the royal nursery, craftsmen worked day and night preparing 2 small wooden cradles carved with moonflowers and wolves. Every corner of the palace slowly transformed into a home instead of a fortress. Yet beyond those peaceful mountains, darkness continued to move. Prince Ronan stood inside a hidden chamber beneath his estate. The walls were covered with maps and secret messages gathered over many years. One exhausted spy knelt before him after returning from the northern wilderness. "We found an old mountain pass. It disappears behind enchanted mist. No ordinary soldier can enter." Ronan smiled slowly. Then the stories were true. The Moon Kingdom survived. He turned toward another servant. Summon every loyal house that still remembers the Blackthorn oath. Do not speak openly. Tell them the forgotten crown has been found. The servant bowed before disappearing into the shadows. Ronan walked toward a tall window overlooking the sleeping city. Soon every ambitious noble would have to choose between the Shadow Crown and the Moon Crown. He intended to claim both. Several weeks later, Kale secretly left the palace, wearing simple travel clothes instead of royal armor. Only Marcus accompanied him. No royal banners. No soldiers. No ceremony. The Alpha King traveled like an ordinary warrior. Village after village welcomed them with simple kindness. Kale spent hours speaking with farmers. He helped rebuild broken bridges destroyed during the war. He listened to widows who had lost husbands in battles he had commanded. For the first time in many years, he saw the kingdom not from a throne but from the dusty roads walked by ordinary people. Everywhere he went, he quietly asked the same question. Have you seen a healer named Lyra? Most people shook their heads. Some remembered her gentle hands treating wounded travelers. Others remembered her smile. One old woman looked at Kale carefully before answering. She healed my grandson after wolves attacked him. When I offered her money, she refused. She only asked me to love him well. Kale looked away. His chest tightened. The woman he had pushed away had spent her life healing strangers while asking for nothing in return. Marcus noticed the pain in his king's face. You miss her, Kale answered with painful honesty. Every sunrise, every night, every breath. Far away, Lyra entered the sacred hall of ancestors, where the moon queens of old had once ruled. Ancient portraits lined the walls. At the center stood a crystal mirror untouched for generations. Elder Mira placed both hands upon the glass. This mirror reveals truth instead of appearance. Look into it. Lyra stepped forward. At first she saw only her own reflection. Then the image slowly changed. She no longer wore a simple white gown. A magnificent silver crown rested upon her head. Two small children stood beside her holding her hands. Behind them stood thousands of wolves bowing together. Then another figure slowly appeared. Alpha King Kale. He reached toward her. Before their hands touched, the vision shattered into countless pieces. Lyra stepped backward. Why did it show him? Elder Mira remained silent. Some bonds cannot be broken by distance. Others cannot be broken even by heartbreak. At that same moment, a messenger burst into the Moon Palace, carrying urgent news. His breathing was uneven. His face had lost all color. Princess, our border scouts have vanished. Someone has begun searching the hidden mountain passes. Elder Mira immediately understood what those words meant. After 20 years, the enemies of the Moon Kingdom had finally found the first thread leading back to its forgotten gates. And somewhere beyond the mountains, Alpha King Kale looked toward the northern sky with growing determination. He no longer searched only for the woman he loved. He was riding toward a war that had already begun. A cold wind swept across the hidden mountain passes as the first leaves of autumn drifted toward the valleys below. The peaceful silence that had protected the Moon Kingdom for 2 decades no longer felt comforting. It felt like the quiet before a storm. Watchtowers that had stood empty for years were now filled with alert warriors. Scouts moved through the forest before sunrise and returned long after darkness covered the land. Every report carried the same warning. Unknown men had been seen near the ancient borders. Someone was searching with purpose instead of curiosity. Inside the Moon Palace, Lyra stood before a giant map carved into polished stone. Rivers shimmered beneath crystal light, while hidden trails crossed the mountains like silver threads. Around her gathered the commanders of the Moon Guard. Some had protected the kingdom since before she was born. Others had only recently sworn loyalty to the rightful heir. Yet every warrior in the room looked toward Lyra before speaking. Without realizing it, she had become the calm center holding everyone together. The commander of the Northern Watch stepped forward. 3 of our border patrols disappeared during the night. No bodies were found. No signs of battle. Only broken arrows left behind in the snow. The room fell silent. Lyra studied the map for several moments. Whoever took them wanted information. Not blood. The commander nodded. That is our belief as well. Elder Mira looked toward Lyra with quiet pride. Months earlier, the young healer would have responded with fear. Now she thought like a queen. Every decision placed the safety of others before her own emotions. Lyra rested one hand upon her growing belly. We strengthen every hidden entrance. No one fights alone. No scout leaves without support. If our enemies seek the Moon Kingdom, they will find united people instead of frightened survivors. Every commander bowed before leaving to carry out her orders. Far beyond the mountains, Prince Ronan stood inside a fortress hidden beneath black cliffs. The chamber around him glowed with the light of burning braziers. Captured scouts from the Moon Kingdom knelt before him with chains around their wrists. They had refused every offer. They had endured every threat. Not one of them had revealed the kingdom's location. Ronan slowly walked between them. I admire loyalty. It is a beautiful thing. Until it becomes inconvenient. One wounded scout looked directly into his eyes. You will never find our queen. Ronan smiled without anger. I already have. He unfolded a weathered map across the table. One by one he marked every place where his spies had vanished. Every failed search. Every hidden trail. Every impossible coincidence. The scattered marks slowly formed a single path leading toward the forgotten northern peaks. The scout's face changed for only a heartbeat. That was enough. Ronan quietly rolled the map closed. Thank you. You have just shown me exactly where to go. The prisoner closed his eyes in despair. He had betrayed his kingdom without speaking a single word. Meanwhile, Alpha King Kale continued his journey through remote villages. Each passing day revealed more truths hidden beneath years of silence. Ordinary people spoke freely because they believed he was only another traveling warrior. One elderly blacksmith invited Kale and Marcus into his small workshop before a heavy rain began. While sharing warm bread, beside the fire the old man spoke about the royal court. The Shadow Kingdom has a strong king. But sometimes, strong men listen to weak voices. Kale remained quiet. The blacksmith continued. Years ago a healer came through our village. She treated my wife without asking for payment. She told us kindness always returns one day. I heard the court drove her away. The old man lowered his eyes. A kingdom that rejects such a woman invites sorrow. Kale felt every word settle heavily upon his heart. When they left the village, Marcus finally spoke. The people already know. Kale looked toward the dark road ahead. No, they understand. That is far worse. Back inside the Moon Kingdom, a peaceful morning quickly turned into terror. Children laughed beside the palace gardens, while white wolves played among blooming flowers. Lyra watched them from a nearby balcony. For the first time in many months, she allowed herself to believe happiness might truly last. Then the warning horns echoed across the valley. Once, twice, 3 times. The sound froze every smile. A wounded scout rode through the gates covered in blood and dust. His exhausted horse collapsed beneath him. He struggled to stand. They found the eastern pass. The words struck like lightning. Commanders rushed into motion. Warriors raced toward the walls. Families hurried children inside protected shelters. Lyra descended the palace steps without hesitation. Report everything. The scout fought to catch his breath. They were not searching. They were measuring, counting, preparing roads. Thousands will come. Not hundreds. Thousands. Elder Mira quietly closed her eyes. The invasion had already begun. That evening the council gathered beneath flickering torchlight. Some elders argued for sealing every entrance and disappearing once again into the mountains. Others demanded an immediate attack before the enemy grew stronger. Voices rose. Fear spread. Lyra listened without interruption. Finally she stood. Silence returned. If we hide forever, our children will inherit fear instead of freedom. If we rush into battle, we become exactly what our enemies expect. We protect our people. We watch. We prepare. But we do not surrender our future. The room slowly calmed. Even those who disagreed could not deny the quiet strength behind her words. Late that night, Lyra walked alone through the Moon Temple. The ancient halls glowed softly beneath crystal lamps. She knelt before the sacred pool where she had first awakened her royal power. The water remained perfectly still. Then gentle ripples spread across its surface without anyone touching it. A deep voice echoed through the chamber. Darkness approaches. Lyra slowly lifted her head. The legendary black beast stepped from the shadows. It had crossed impossible mountains without anyone noticing. It walked directly toward her before lowering its massive head beside her hands. She gently rested her fingers against its fur. You came. The beast released a quiet rumble. This time Lyra understood. Not with words, with feeling. It had not come to protect only her. It had come because something ancient had awakened. Far beneath the northern mountains, enormous stone doors slowly opened after remaining sealed for centuries. Towering wolves carved from black crystal stepped into the light. Their eyes burned with silver fire. The ancient guardians of the moon crown had awakened. At that same moment Prince Ronan reached the final hidden pass. He stood before a wall of swirling white mist stretching between towering cliffs. Every guide who had led him this far refused to take another step. One whispered through trembling lips, "Beyond this veil the old kings vanished forever." Ronan smiled. "Then I shall become the first man to return." He stepped into the enchanted mist. The air around him trembled. Ancient magic tested every heartbeat. For a long moment nothing happened. Then the mist slowly parted. Far beyond the veil, the distant towers of the hidden moon kingdom shimmered beneath the rising moon. Ronan had finally found what 20 years of bloodshed had failed to uncover. High above the valley, the legendary beast suddenly lifted its head and released a thunderous roar that echoed through every mountain. Lyra looked toward the northern cliffs. Her heart sank. She no longer wondered whether the enemy would come. She realized with chilling certainty that they were already watching her kingdom from the shadows. The first light of dawn slipped across the hidden valley, but the Moon Kingdom no longer woke to birdsong and peaceful rivers. The sound of war drums rolled through the mountains like distant thunder. Every tower stood filled with archers. Every gate was guarded by warriors wearing silver armor polished until it reflected the morning sky. Mothers quietly embraced their children before sending them into underground shelters. Old men sharpened forgotten swords. Young soldiers whispered prayers beneath their breath. The kingdom, that had lived in silence for 20 years, now prepared to defend its future. Lyra stood upon the highest balcony, overlooking everything she had promised to protect. Her white cloak moved gently in the cold wind, while her eyes remained fixed on the northern cliffs, where danger waited beyond the mist. She rested one hand over her growing belly. The twins stirred softly, as though they could already sense the fear surrounding their home. Elder Mira joined her without speaking. For several moments they simply watched the valley below. Finally the old healer smiled. "Do you remember the frightened healer who walked across the battlefield, carrying nothing except a bucket of water?" Lyra laughed quietly. "Sometimes I miss her." Elder Mira gently shook her head. "She still lives inside you. The only difference is that now she knows who she truly is." Those words settled warmly inside Lyra's heart. She no longer questioned whether she deserved this kingdom. She questioned only how to save it. Far beyond the mountains, Prince Ronan stood hidden among towering rocks overlooking the valley through a crystal spyglass. For the first time, he saw the Moon Kingdom with his own eyes. White castles rose above silver rivers. Ancient temples shimmered beneath waterfalls. Wolves larger than horses guarded every entrance. It was more magnificent than any story had described. His smile slowly widened. "Soon every stone will belong to me." One of his commanders stepped beside him. "My prince, the Shadow King is approaching these mountains with a small escort." Ronan lowered the spyglass. "Interesting. He came searching for the healer. Instead he shall witness the fall of her kingdom. Do not stop him. Let him walk directly into my trap." The commander bowed before disappearing into the mist. Meanwhile Cale and Marcus climbed narrow mountain trails that very few travelers had ever seen. The higher they climbed, the colder the air became. Strange silver flowers grew between the rocks. Ancient wolf carvings covered the cliffs. Cale felt an invisible pull guiding every step. Marcus looked around carefully. "Have you noticed? The forest is watching us." Cale nodded. He had sensed it hours earlier. Hidden guardians moved silently through the trees. None attacked. None revealed themselves. They simply observed, as though deciding whether the Alpha King was friend or enemy. By sunset, Cale reached the ancient veil of enchanted mist. The same veil Ronan had already crossed. The air shimmered with silver light. Every instinct warned him to stop. Instead he stepped forward. The mist surrounded him. For one endless moment, he saw nothing except white light. Then voices echoed around him. Some were filled with anger. Others carried sorrow. One voice whispered clearly, "Only those who seek with love may pass." The mist slowly disappeared. Cale found himself standing at the edge of the hidden valley. His breath caught. He had discovered a kingdom believed lost for generations. Before he could take another step, dozens of moon warriors surrounded him with drawn blades. Not a single weapon trembled. Their commander stepped forward. "State your name." Cale met his gaze calmly. "I am Cale Draven." Silence spread instantly. Several warriors exchanged uneasy looks. "The Alpha King." The commander slowly lowered his sword. "Wait here. Someone must decide your fate." News traveled quickly through the palace. "The Alpha King has arrived." Lyra froze where she stood. She had imagined meeting him again countless times. Sometimes she imagined anger. Sometimes tears. Sometimes silence. None of those imagined moments prepared her for reality. Elder Mira gently touched her shoulder. "The choice is yours. No one will force you to see him." Lyra closed her eyes. Then she opened them with quiet determination. "Bring him. If destiny refuses to leave us alone, then I will face it." A short time later Cale entered the Hall of Moonlight. His footsteps echoed softly across polished stone. He stopped the moment he saw Lyra. For several heartbeats, neither of them moved. Time itself seemed to disappear. She was no longer the quiet healer wearing patched clothing. She stood tall in flowing white robes embroidered with silver moonflowers. Grace surrounded her without effort. Confidence shone in her eyes. The frightened girl had become a woman born to lead. Cale could barely breathe. "You are alive," Lyra answered calmly. "I never stopped living. I simply stopped waiting." Pain crossed Cale's face. "I searched every village, every road, every mountain." Lyra looked into his eyes. "But not when I needed you." The truth landed harder than any weapon. Cale lowered his head. "You are right. There is no excuse for what I did. I believed I was protecting you. Instead, I became the one who hurt you most." Silence returned. Neither of them knew what words could heal wounds left by destiny. Before either could speak again, the palace doors burst open. A wounded scout stumbled inside. Blood covered his armor. His breathing came in desperate gasps. "The enemy has crossed the eastern cliffs. Thousands of soldiers, Blackthorn banners. They will reach the valley before sunset tomorrow." Every commander immediately rushed toward the war chamber. The peaceful reunion ended before it had truly begun. Inside the council hall, large battle maps covered the stone table. Moon commanders argued over defensive positions. Some demanded closing the gates. Others wanted to destroy the mountain bridges. Cale studied the map quietly. Then he pointed toward a narrow canyon. "This is where Ronan wants you to fight." The commanders looked toward him. He continued. "If you defend only the gates, he surrounds the valley within 2 days. If you meet him in the canyon, he traps your army between the cliffs. He has prepared this attack for years." Lyra watched him carefully. "How do you know?" Cale answered honestly. "Because I trained beside him. I know how he thinks." The room fell silent. For the first time, the Moon commanders saw not the Alpha King who had rejected their queen. They saw the greatest battlefield strategist alive. Lyra slowly nodded. "Then we fight together." Several elders objected immediately. "He cannot be trusted. He abandoned our queen." Cale did not defend himself. He simply accepted every accusation. Lyra raised one hand. "Enough. This war is no longer about old wounds. If Ronan wins, there will be no kingdom left for either of us." Her voice carried calm authority. No one argued again. That night preparations filled every corner of the valley. Blacksmiths forged weapons without rest. Healers prepared medicines. Families embraced beneath torchlight. Children slept unaware that war waited only hours away. Late in the evening, Cale quietly walked through the palace gardens. The legendary black beast emerged from the shadows. For the first time since Lyra had left the Shadow Kingdom, the creature ignored its alpha. Instead, it walked directly past him and stopped beside Lyra, who stood beneath a blooming moon tree. The enormous guardian lowered itself before her. Cale smiled sadly. "Even now, you choose her first." Lyra gently stroked the beast's head. "It is not choosing between us. It is protecting what matters most." Before Cale could answer, the ground suddenly shook beneath their feet. A deep roar echoed from the northern mountains. Not from soldiers, not from wolves. Something far older, far more powerful. Every ancient guardian hidden beneath the Moon Kingdom had awakened at once. And beyond the eastern cliffs, countless black banners rose above the horizon. The final war had begun. The rising sun never reached the valley in peace. Thick clouds gathered above the mountains until the entire sky turned the color of steel. Cold wind swept across the cliffs, carrying the sound of thousands of marching feet. Black banners appeared one after another beyond the eastern pass, like an endless sea spreading across the land. Armor flashed beneath the gray light. Spears rose together. War horns echoed through every mountain until even the rivers seemed to tremble. From the walls of the Moon Kingdom, every warrior stood ready. Lyra stepped onto the highest tower wearing silver battle armor for the first time in her life. Moon symbols shimmered across the polished steel, while a long white cloak flowed behind her. She no longer looked like the quiet healer who had once carried herbs through a battlefield. She looked like the queen her people had waited decades to see. Beside her stood Alpha King Kale, wearing black armor marked by countless battles. His expression remained calm, but his eyes never left the enemy army below. Between them stood the legendary Black Beast. It watched the valley with silent focus, as though it already knew how this day would be remembered. Prince Ronan rode to the front of his army upon a massive gray wolf. His black cloak danced wildly in the mountain wind. He raised one hand, and the entire army stopped at once. Silence spread across the battlefield. Then Ronan laughed. His voice carried across the valley without effort. "Princess Lyra, how long will you hide behind old legends? Come outside. Let your people witness the truth." Lyra stepped forward until every soldier could see her. "I have hidden from no one. You are the one who has lived behind lies." A smile crossed Ronan's face. "Brave words, but bravery will not save your kingdom." He slowly removed an old silver pendant from around his neck. The moment Elder Mira saw it, her face turned pale. It belonged to Queen Selene. Lyra stared at the pendant. "Where did you get that?" Ronan's smile widened. "From the woman who begged me to spare her child." The valley fell into stunned silence. A painful gasp escaped Lyra before she could stop herself. For one terrible heartbeat, she imagined her mother's final moments. Fear, desperation, a mother trying to protect her daughter. Ronan believed he had broken her spirit. Instead, he awakened something far stronger. Lyra slowly lifted her head. Her eyes no longer carried sorrow. They burned with quiet determination. "You were stolen memories, but you will never carry her courage." Without another word, she raised her hand. The gates of the Moon Kingdom opened. Silver-armored warriors marched forward in perfect formation. Kale stepped beside her. "Today we end this." The battle exploded across the valley. Arrows darkened the sky. Shields crashed together. The sound of steel echoed from every mountain. Moon warriors moved with graceful precision, while shadow soldiers fought with overwhelming strength. Neither side surrendered a single step. Kale led the first charge through the center of the battlefield. His sword moved like flowing lightning. Every strike pushed the enemy farther back. The legendary Black Beast fought beside him. Its mighty roar shook the courage of every soldier standing against it. At the same time, Lyra remained near the front lines, healing wounded warriors, even as the battle raged around her. She refused to leave anyone behind. A frightened young soldier collapsed beside her after taking an arrow through his leg. He looked barely old enough to hold a sword. "Do not leave me." Lyra knelt beside him. "I will not." She removed the arrow with careful hands before wrapping the wound. The young warrior looked at her with tears in his eyes. "You are our queen. You should be safe." Lyra smiled gently. "A queen who hides while her people bleed is not worthy of a crown." Those words spread through the warriors around her. Their courage returned. They rose again. Far across the battlefield, Ronan watched everything with growing frustration. He had expected panic. Instead, every act of kindness from Lyra made her people fight even harder. He turned toward one of his hidden captains. "Begin the second plan." The captain disappeared into the chaos. Moments later, explosions echoed from the western cliffs. Smoke filled the sky. The mountain bridge protecting the palace collapsed into the river below. Moon warriors turned in shock. Enemy soldiers poured through the hidden passage. Someone had betrayed them. Inside the palace, panic spread among the servants. Families rushed through the halls. Children cried. The hidden passage had been known only by trusted commanders. Kale immediately understood. There is a traitor inside the Moon Guard. Before anyone could react, another messenger ran toward Lyra. His face was filled with terror. "The royal nursery. Enemy soldiers are heading there." Lyra felt her heart stop. Her children, Without hesitation, she ran toward the palace. Kale followed beside her. They fought through narrow hallways where enemy soldiers appeared from secret doors. Every corridor became another battle. Every staircase another struggle. Finally they reached the nursery. The room stood empty. The cradles remained untouched. Elder Mira stepped from behind a hidden wall holding the newborn twins safely in her arms. For a brief moment relief filled Lyra's heart. Then she noticed blood upon Elder Mira's sleeve. "You are hurt." The old healer smiled despite the pain. "Only a scratch. The children are safe." Suddenly slow applause echoed through the room. Prince Ronan stepped from the shadows surrounded by armed warriors. He looked toward the twins with quiet satisfaction. "There they are, the heirs of the moon crown." Kale immediately moved in front of Lyra. "You will not touch them." Ronan laughed softly. This was never about killing children. It was about awakening their blood. He raised an ancient black crystal, glowing with dark light. The room trembled. The twins suddenly began to cry. Silver light spread across their tiny hands. Deep beneath the palace, an enormous rumble echoed through the mountain. The moon crown had sensed the royal bloodline. Ancient power was awakening. Ronan smiled with triumph. "Exactly as I planned." He threw the crystal onto the floor. Dark smoke exploded through the nursery, covering every corner. When the smoke cleared, Ronan had vanished. So had one of the twins. Lyra looked wildly around the room. Her arms shook. Only little Arya remained beside Elder Mira. Aiden was gone. A mother's cry echoed through the palace with such heartbreaking pain that every warrior on the battlefield froze for a single terrible moment. Kale slowly tightened his grip around his sword. His eyes filled with a fury greater than anything he had ever known. This was no longer a war for kingdoms. It had become a battle to bring their son home. Silence fell over the palace for only a heartbeat after Aiden disappeared. Then the entire kingdom erupted into motion. Every corridor filled with running warriors. Torches lit the hidden tunnels beneath the palace. Scouts rushed toward every mountain pass, while the sound of battle continued beyond the walls. Yet for Lyra the world had become strangely quiet. She could no longer hear the clash of swords or the cries of soldiers. She heard only the memory of her little son's frightened cry before the dark smoke swallowed him. She stood in the middle of the ruined nursery, holding Arya tightly against her chest. The little girl had stopped crying and rested peacefully in her mother's arms, as though she trusted Lyra to make everything right. That innocent trust became stronger than fear itself. Lyra gently kissed her daughter's forehead before handing her to Elder Mira. "Protect her, no matter what happens." Elder Mira accepted the child with tears in her eyes. "You have my life." Lyra turned toward Kale. Her eyes no longer carried sorrow. They carried purpose. "We end this today." Kale looked into her face and saw the same fearless woman who had once walked toward the Alpha King's beast carrying only a bucket of water. Except now she carried something greater than courage. She carried the strength of a mother. Without another word, they left the palace together. Outside, the battlefield had become a sea of smoke and broken steel. Fires burned across the valley. The wounded were carried toward healer tents while exhausted warriors continued fighting beneath dark skies. Neither army had won. Neither army had surrendered. The war waited for one final decision. High above the battlefield, Prince Ronan stood upon the ancient altar of the Moon Crown. The sacred place rested on the highest cliff overlooking the valley. Long ago, only true Moon Queens had been allowed to stand there. Now black banners surrounded the altar while dark priests prepared an ancient ritual. Little Aiden lay inside a circle of glowing symbols. Silver light flowed gently from his tiny hands into the crystal crown resting upon the altar. The Moon Crown was awakening. Not through love, through stolen blood. Ronan raised both hands toward the sky. "Today every kingdom will kneel before me." The earth suddenly trembled. Ancient stone pillars surrounding the altar began glowing with brilliant silver light. Far below, the legendary black beast lifted its head. Its golden eyes turned toward the mountain. Without waiting for commands, it charged through the battlefield. Enemy soldiers tried to stop it. None remained standing. The giant guardian climbed the rocky cliffs with unstoppable speed. Kale watched it disappear. He understood immediately. The beast knew where Aiden had been taken. Lyra and Kale followed without hesitation. The climb tested every remaining ounce of their strength. Loose stones slid beneath their feet. Arrows rained down from hidden archers. Moon warriors fought beside shadow soldiers as though old hatred had never existed. Every step toward the summit cost another sacrifice. At last they reached the ancient altar. The sight before them stole every breath. Aiden lay surrounded by silver light. The moon crown floated above him. Prince Ronan stood waiting with calm confidence. You are too late. The crown is already chosen. Lyra slowly stepped forward. No, it has only awakened. Choosing and awakening are not the same. Ronan laughed. Do you still believe destiny favors kindness? The world belongs to those willing to take it. He reached for the floating crown. The moment his fingers touched the ancient silver metal, a deafening roar echoed across the mountain. The legendary black beast leaped between them. Instead of attacking Ronan, it stood directly before the crown. Its massive body blocked the sacred relic. Ronan frowned. Move. The beast did not move. Instead it lowered its head toward Lyra. For a brief moment complete silence covered the mountain. Every warrior watched without breathing. Then the beast slowly knelt before her. Not before Kale. Not before the moon crown. Before Lyra. Every elder present immediately understood. The ancient prophecy had come true. Lyra walked forward until she stood beside the guardian. She gently placed one hand upon its head. The moon crown suddenly left the air and drifted toward her. Silver light surrounded the mountain. Ancient voices echoed through the wind. One by one the glowing symbols carved into the altar awakened after centuries of silence. Ronan shouted in fury. Impossible. I carry royal blood. Elder Mira stepped forward. You carry blood. She carries the heart worthy of wearing the crown. Ronan drew his sword and rushed toward Lyra with all the rage that had consumed him for 20 years. Before he reached her, Kale stepped into his path. Steel crashed against steel. The final duel began. Neither man spoke. Words had lost their meaning. Every strike carried years of betrayal. Every movement echoed countless battles fought before this day. Ronan attacked with desperate fury. Kale fought with calm purpose. He was no longer defending a throne. He was defending his family. The battle spread across the altar until one final clash sent Ronan stumbling backward. His sword slipped from his hand and slid across the stone. Kale pointed his blade toward his former friend. It ends here. Ronan looked toward the edge of the mountain, then toward Lyra. Hatred twisted across his face. If I cannot rule this kingdom, then neither of you will. He lunged toward Aiden. Before anyone else could move, Lyra raised her hand. Brilliant moonlight burst from the crown surrounding her. A wave of pure silver light crossed the altar. Ronan froze where he stood. The darkness surrounding his soul simply disappeared. His strength vanished. His knees struck the stone. Chains of glowing light wrapped around his body until he could no longer move. The war was over. Across the battlefield, every enemy soldier slowly lowered their weapons. No command had been given. Hope itself had won. Lyra hurried toward her son. She lifted Aiden into her arms while tears finally escaped her eyes. The little boy opened his eyes and smiled. Mother. That single word healed every wound inside her heart. Kale stood beside them quietly. He looked at Lyra with complete honesty. Before every warrior. Before every elder. Before both kingdoms. He slowly knelt. I failed you when you needed me most. I allowed fear to speak louder than love. I cannot erase that pain. But if forgiveness still exists within your heart, then I will spend the rest of my life earning it instead of asking for it. The valley became completely silent. Lyra looked at the man who had once broken her heart. She remembered the lonely road through the rain. She remembered the hidden kingdom. She remembered every painful step that had shaped the woman she had become. Then she gently reached toward him, not to erase the past, but to build a future. Kale took her hand. At that exact moment, the moon crown settled gently upon Lyra's head. Silver light covered the entire valley. Every wolf across both kingdoms lifted its head toward the sky. The legendary black beast bowed once more before its true queen. Then something extraordinary happened. The guardian slowly turned toward Kale. For the first time in its long existence, it bowed to him as well. Elder Mira smiled through happy tears. The final truth has revealed itself. The guardian never belonged to the Alpha King. It never belonged to the Moon Kingdom alone. It was created by the first Moon Queen to protect the one ruler whose heart would unite both kingdoms instead of dividing them. That was why it had accepted Lyra on the battlefield before anyone knew her name. It had recognized the true queen long before the world was ready to believe she existed. As the sun finally broke through the clouds, the light spread across a kingdom no longer divided by fear or pride. The orphan healer, who had once carried nothing but a bucket of warm water, now wore the moon crown upon her head. Beside her stood the Alpha, who had learned that true strength was found not in power but in humility. Their children laughed safely in their arms while two kingdoms knelt together beneath a peaceful sky. The story that had begun with blood upon a battlefield ended with hope, rising like the morning sun, proving that the gentlest hands often carry the greatest destiny of all.